Is your workplace culture quietly costing you productivity, well-being, and even your best people? Most leaders don't see this until it's too late. In this episode, Abe Brown, founder of Flourishing Workplace, shares how to measure the health of your culture, spot the warning signs, and turn things around before it costs you your team. So if you lead a small to mid-sized team and want to improve well-being, productivity, and retention, this episode's for you. So let's dive in. Hello, Abe. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. Thanks so much for having me. I love having a great conversation with a quality individual like yourself and, of course, your great audience.
Excellent. So, Abe, you've long highlighted how vital mental health is at work for both individuals and organizations. So what led you to focus on this cause and ultimately found Flourishing Workplace?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say two main drivers. I mean, the first is the fact that as a leader, as a manager, and as an executive myself, I absolutely began to notice early in my career that the mental health of our team and the individuals of that team had an incredible impact, of course, on the overall productivity and performance, right? And so, it just makes sense that a person who's highly stressed, who's got a lot of anxiety or depression, that will inevitably spill out into the workplace and into the team dynamic. But I think secondly, really my own personal journey, the family journey that I had and continue to have around mental health really showed me that, no matter how skilled or competent you are, mental health impacts us all. And, because we spend so much time on the job, that workplace can either be supportive or it can actually diminish our mental health. And so let's make sure that we're doing the supportive thing and not the diminishing thing.
Yeah, that journey sounds powerful. So now, how do you define a flourishing workplace, especially when it comes to culture, team dynamics, and employee well-being?
Yeah, I like to keep it really simple. I mean, a flourishing workplace is where people both feel good and function well. Now, sometimes you can have a workplace where everybody feels good, but they don't function well. And so that's really bad for the employer. If everybody's like super happy, but they're not functional, then that's kind of horrible for the person paying the bills or the people paying the bills. On the other hand, sometimes they function well, but they don't feel good. And that might, to the employer seem like a great recipe, but it's not sustainable. And so what we've discovered, in 2025 and in many decades preceding, is that people have to both feel good and function well in order for there to be sustainability from all sides of the equation. So the flourishing workplace contributes or creates an environment where the people on the team both feel good and they function well. And this is critical.
That's a pretty clear definition and clear vision. So now, can you actually walk us through the tools you use to assess workplace culture? I understand you have the Flourishing Life Questionnaire, and share what should leaders be watching for as they go through these assessment tools?
Yeah, so when we talk about workplace mental health and creating a flourishing workplace, of course, my background is I was a registered therapist for a number of years and also, have a lot of expertise in education in business. But we also collaborated with a PhD psychologist who has created a tool called the Flourishing Life Questionnaire. And this tool has been used in over 1 million individuals in over 20 countries around the world. And so sort of the data set, the pool of data is very, very high. And this gives us a real opportunity to scientifically measure, are you flourishing? And then to pinpoint the areas that are working well, because it's a strength-based approach. It's not just about what's wrong, but it's also about what's strong. What are you guys doing really well? But of course, like any assessment tool, it also shows what may need improvement. And so you could imagine if you had a small team, let's say 50 people, and you have 50 people going through this assessment process. It's all online. It only takes 15 or 20 minutes. But now what it does is it gives me as an individual team member, and it's very confidential. So the results only go to me. They don't go to HR. They don't go to the leadership team. They just go to me. But it allows me to see where I'm flourishing and how my own flourishing is contributing to the work environment. But then what we are able to do is to aggregate all that data. We de-identify it and kind of push that up into now, how is the team doing? And it really creates a precision measurement rather than us just coming in and saying, well, emotional intelligence worked at our last client. We're going to try it on you guys. We're actually able to see where are some of the challenges. Is emotional regulation an issue? Is emotional intelligence an issue? Is strategic thinking part of the problem? Is collaboration skills? And now that we have the data and we're able to pinpoint where the strengths are and where the areas of opportunity are, now we have an opportunity with the team to work forward and move forward on pinpointing those specific areas. And it's awesome because, you can set it up so that if we work with a team, and typically that would be, let's say, a 1-year engagement over the individual quarters. So every 3 months, we're able to continue to run this assessment tool to measure and track progress. So you can actually see, hey, these are some of the pain points. This is how the approach is improving those pain points and making everything better for the sake of creating that flourishing workplace.
Yeah, tools, especially vetted tools and scientific tools like you have developed, are crucial for measuring usually, fluffy things like cultural shifts. So it sounds like you've got the process well down. So could you walk us through a story where a culture truly shifted, what tangible impact that made on performance and the team dynamics?
Yeah, one of the ones I love to share is an organization that we've been working with now for actually a few years, let's say 3.5, 4 years. And, they're in the restaurant industry. And of course you would think, well, who would think about that? But, imagine being a person working in a restaurant, the servers, the management, the people in the back taking care of the kitchen and all of the food preparation. It's a high volume industry where sometimes you can have difficult customers and, a lot of pressure. And so the ownership, when they had one location, said, we really want to make sure that not only do we invest in leadership development because they had an expansion plan and they wanted to make sure their bench strength was strong, but we also want to make sure, because they hire and have employed a lot of millennials and Gen Z, that we have a supportive environment that really supports people's mental health and well-being. We want to be proactive. We don't want to wait until, the stuff hits the fan. We want to make sure that we get out ahead of this. And so we started working with them. It's a really simple process, just kind of the way we describe. And I'll tell you now, there are almost 10 locations in a couple different provinces. And it's been amazing to see how that sort of ownership vision that said, we want to support not only bench strength, but creating that flourishing workplace. And we were able in our organization to do both sides of that same coin with them, and how it's just had an amazing impact. And every time I'm also one of their customers, so I eat in their locations. They're all over the city of Calgary and in different places around Calgary. And, you can really just feel the energy. You eat out from time to time, and you can just feel the culture of a restaurant. The moment you walk in, are they happy to see you? Is it sort of like that place where, everybody knows your name and there's that sort of sense of community and connection, which is so important when you're thinking about food. And I'm happy for the fact that we've been able to work with them and create that in a very sustainable way.
Now that transformation speaks volumes about your process that you walk people through. So what is it that truly makes your approach stand out, especially in comparison to other cookie cutter leadership models?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And I'll tell you, because we worked with a billionaire, who leads a team in Silicon Valley. So this is real world stuff. And he said, what I love about your team is how you correlate and connect both leadership development and mental health. So let me kind of explain. There are lots of consultants out there and executive coaches who work on leadership development, and that's great. Keep going. But the other approach is, well, let's just focus on mental health. And then it gets really clinical. We need the psychiatrists, we need the prescriptions, we need the psychologists, we need the therapists, we need an army of people in white coats who are going to come and fix us. And what we think about is, let's get ahead of this. Let's get proactive. Let's not wait until you need the psychiatrist because it's really bad. Let's get ahead of this and create that psychologically safe environment. And when you have that, people can grow. And think about any relationship. I mean, I'm married to my lovely wife of 14 years. We have a psychologically safe environment. I grow, she grows. We don't have to force it. We don't have to try to make it happen. It's truly a flourishing environment. And that's because we both work hard at creating that psychological safety for each other, allows both of us, she runs her own business, and of course I run mine, to really actually thrive together, though we're both on our own track in life and in business. And I kind of see it the same. It's sort of like, as we create that flourishing environment, that sort of psychologically safe environment, well, now leaders can thrive. And all the data shows that when you have a psychologically safe environment, people grow, they flourish, they thrive. And when you don't, tell you what, everybody gets into this protective shell. And now our whole focus is what are our differences, what's wrong about each other, what you need to fix and what I need to fix. And there's a time and a place for that, for sure. But the context needs to be that overarching psychological safety. And so, I'm just so grateful that we get to contribute to that. And, it's a wonderful thing to me when I have customers, many who say, look, you guys have been so effective. We just build you into our budget now because we can actually see the tangible results on our bottom line.
Yeah, that's critical. Get out of the CYA mode and into collaboration mode.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay, so, let's flip gears a little bit. The show is Top Dog Tips, and we're all about real practical leadership. So, custom strategies work for sure, but let's go even deeper. What are 3 immediate steps that leaders and teams can take today to start building a flourishing workplace?
Love it. Great question. I always love to use the sort of language and then keep it simple, Sally, as they say, keep it simple, student. And so I use 3 C's: compassion, chemistry, and competence. And I find that these are intimately linked, and let me explain. The first starting place is compassion. When you operate and create an environment of compassion, and compassion doesn't mean, anything goes. It just means that we have empathy and understanding in how we relate. Now, that compassion starts within. Like, I need to be compassionate to myself, but then I'm able to extend that to you as a member of the team. And that works mutually. So everyone's extending that to each other. That then allows for chemistry. And every leader and executive who's listening to me right now, you know the power of chemistry. You don't need to tell me. When you have a team that has chemistry everybody's firing on all cylinders and they actually like each other, then what happens is you have that competence that begins to flow. So I kind of see it as a 3-step process. Let's create an environment of just compassion. Again, it's not that everything goes, but that we have some understanding. And then that allows us to then begin to feel like, wow, we're actually fitting together with some chemistry. The puzzle pieces are coming together. And now the total picture that the sort of customer sees, the stakeholder sees, is, wow, these guys are competent. They have everything going. And so as a leader, these are all, I kind of call them sort of like volume dials. I can turn up the compassion, I can turn it down. I can turn up the chemistry, or I can turn it down. And I can turn up the level of competency on my team, or I can turn it down. These are controllables. And rather than sitting there and saying, I can't do anything because of Trump's tariffs and everything that's going on in Ottawa. And, we can always focus on the problems, but as a leader, I have to focus on what can I control? Compassion, chemistry, competence. Simple, not easy, but simple.
The 3 C's, I love it. That's truly insightful, Abe. So, you know what? Many can lead from knowledge, but authenticity stems from lived experiences. So could you share how your personal journey has shaped your leadership approach and coaching philosophy?
Yeah, for sure. So my own personal journey was really informed, of course, I guess like everybody else, based on my childhood. And we grew up in a very abusive sort of home, my brother and I. There was a lot of poverty and actual, pretty hardcore physical abuse. And so, my own sort of journey with anxiety and mental health really started quite young because, they kind of say sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, anyone who's been through that knows that, the challenge with physical abuse is that it really does a number on your head, the sort of anxiety that I experienced, the depression. And though I'd like to say as I got into my professional career, I was pretty good at my job, I noticed that there were certain triggers that were happening to me. And so I needed to sort of address that. secondarily, alongside my brother, has had some very, very challenging years. And so as a brother, I love him and I care about him deeply. And seeing how that affected his own businesses, he was very successful in business, but the mental health impacted him profoundly. And I think a lot of this, we were doing workplace mental health before COVID, but through COVID, we actually had, contracts with the government of Alberta to bring workplace mental health to small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs, because even the government recognized, hey, this is Alberta, great place to live and play and work, but we care about the health of our entrepreneurs, our small and medium-sized businesses, and we can recognize that this stuff is actually impacting their ability to thrive. And so, I think it's sort of the combination of those things, and I think if I can just say one thing about that is that whenever we hear like mental health, we kind of have this clinical approach, like where's the people in the white jackets? Where's the prescription pad? And it's not that I would like to say there's not a place for that. Of course there is. But this, mental health is a continuum. And so not everybody needs the medicalized approach on this continuum. Just like your physical health, sure, there's a place for doctors, but how about we get proactive? Like, how about we take care of our nutrition? How about we take care of our sleep? How about we take care of our exercise? And then the doctors are there if those things fail. And I think mental health is 100% the same. It is a finite resource, my mental health. I have to invest in my mental health today in order to make sure that I'm resilient tomorrow. And if I don't invest in my mental health today, then, shame on me, because I won't have resilience tomorrow when I need it. And so it's really, really important to get away from the diagnostic model around, well, my mental health is bad. I got my first diagnosis when I was 7. So I'm not in any way saying there's something wrong with that. But I can sort of blame my diagnosis. I can say, well, nobody knows the trouble I've seen, and nobody knows the hardships that I've been through, and nobody understands the genetics that I have and the diagnosis that I have. Okay, that's fine. But just like a person who's been diagnosed with diabetes, how about you get ahead of the curve? Invest in your physical health. Buy diet, nutrition and exercise, and mental fitness. Mental health is 100% the same. And so, I guess that you can even feel the passion in my voice, because I care so deeply about people in this area. And in the workplace, imagine 5, 10, 50 of us not investing in our mental health. And then we're all trying to play in the sandbox nicely, wondering why. And so the problem is, let's bring in some diversity training or some conflict resolution training. Again, not that those things aren't important, but if I'm not healthy, you can train me, up and down, in and out, and I'm not going to get any better. I'm only going to get worse. And so let's create mentally fit environments and teams. And the ripple effect of that is so beautiful. You can't even begin to describe how amazing that is. And then I don't need somebody hammering, diversity or conflict resolution in my face, because I'm at peace with myself. I'm at peace with the world. So of course I'm at peace with you. I don't have to sit there and have somebody shove something down my throat. I can actually step into an environment that I'm co-creating with my team of respect, of love, of acceptance, of compassion. And boy, what a beautiful thing that is.
Let's see how your experiences have shaped your philosophy and how your philosophy and values guide your work. So it's encouraging to see, my friend.
Yeah, and listen, I tell people, like, we don't have a diversity program. I have a thing called marriage. Like my wife is from a completely different culture, grew up on the other side of the planet, and that has really shaped our entire team. Is to use sort of the language of 2025, incredibly diverse. But I think the problem with a lot of that stuff is, it just looks at it on the surface. It's like, oh, you have a different skin color, a different hair color, a different religion, a different culture. Well, listen, diversity is so much deeper than that. And if the fundamental underlying, sort of ethos is not respect, compassion, empathy, it doesn't matter what you do from a training perspective. So, I really believe in hearts and minds. And when you have that, I'll tell you what, in that order, hearts, minds, then what happens is we collectively come together. And sure, sometimes we need a little bit of work here or there. Let's put a little more emphasis on this or that. That's fine. But the starting point has to be, let's create a psychologically safe environment for everyone. And when that happens, man, it's just a wonderful thing that everybody enjoys. And then you're coming to work leaving fuel. I don't come to the end of my workday saying, oh my God, thank God it's Friday. I come to the end of my workday saying, I am happy that work is over, but I'm leaving fuel rather than drained.
Yeah, making that kind of organizational impact is it's challenging, it's critical. Many have tried going through, but it sounds like you've got a pretty good approach and a good formula. But, that brings up something important. Why do you focus specifically on organizations of like 10 to 300 employees? But what makes that size more open to meaningful cultural transformation?
Yeah, I would say that there's a couple of things. One is, we certainly have worked with organizations and teams, both for-profit and non-profit and government, that are smaller or larger. I find that, at least for us right now, with the size of our team, that's a sweet spot. I do find that when you get into the larger organizations, it becomes very difficult, not just to scale and deliver, but you have, like, when you're over 300 people, these folks have no idea who each other are, right? And, there's 50 in Calgary, there's 30 in Saskatoon, there's, 25 in Winnipeg, there's another 100 in Toronto. And it's not that those folks shouldn't come together, but you almost have to sort of distribute those in team or regional sort of environments, because the idea is to create that psychological safety. So it can definitely happen in the larger organizations, but it's a different beast. It's a different animal. The tools that you have to use are slightly different. And I think, as our own team, we have done it and we're scaling ourselves so that we can do it better. But for us right now, that sweet spot really makes sense. And, it's interesting because now the larger organizations in Canada, in terms of a percentage of how many they employ, is actually quite low. Small and medium-sized businesses employ about 80% of Canadians outside of the public sector. And so the large corporations like the General Motors, et cetera, that in terms of private sector employment is actually quite small as a percentage. And so we're pretty happy with that focus right now.
Okay, it makes perfect sense how smaller and mid-sized organizations are well positioned to make meaningful cultural shifts. So now, as those teams begin building healthier, more resilient workplaces, what kind of free or practical resources do you offer to help them along that journey?
Yeah, so our website has some great free resources where you can sort of try some things on and just get a sense of philosophy. So it's flourishingworkplace.com. And once a person goes there, there's a pop-up that comes up and there's an opportunity to just enter a name and email address. And don't worry, we're not going to spam you. But the idea is to give you an opportunity to access some of these. So we have free video resources that you can download, free audio. If you're an ebook kind of person, we have free ebooks. There's also a tab on flourishingworkplace.com that literally says free resources. And so it's just an opportunity for people to go in there and check things out. Again, in a delivery format that works. If you're a video person, we've got videos. If you're an audio person, we've got audio. If you like the ebook, great. We can do that for you too. And it just gives you a chance to kind of, sort of snack around the edges, get a little bit of a taste and feel. And if nothing else, as a leader, you'll have some stuff you can put into practice in your next Monday morning meeting for sure. But, for those of you who are interested in a deeper dive, there's always an opportunity to connect with myself or a member of our team. And, we don't hard sell anybody. If you're not a fit, you're not a fit. We're not going to hard sell you into that. But at least the conversation gives you an opportunity to explore what's out there and to think, hey, are you guys a fit? We're based in Calgary. We have our office is right in the Franklin Industrial Park. We've been here since 2020 in the Franklin Industrial Park, but we work with companies, and nonprofits right across the country and actually into the United States and in Asia as well. So we're pretty fortunate to have sort of a local footprint with a global reach.
Fantastic. That's a fantastic lineup of resources, Abe. But, one thing that I'm especially eager and supporting of, obviously speaking, is your new video podcast series coming up, The Flourishing Workplace, launching this fall. So what should viewers expect? Who's it made for? What outcomes are you hoping they'll take away from that?
Yeah, so we are really excited about it. We thought that we would, give some of the business owners and leaders that we have worked with an opportunity to tell their story. Of course, I'm going to share my perspective, but it's so great to hear from the actual clients and teams that we've worked with. And so that's going to be happening. We're going to be doing sort of long form interviews where we just talk about, workplace dynamics from, again, people in both for-profit and nonprofit who are in the trenches. They're building their businesses. They're leading their teams. They're making a difference. And let's just talk about it. And if there's one thing, I mean, to me, these are the people to me who are heroes, because when you're leading a smaller to medium-sized organization, for-profit, nonprofit, there's a care factor that I see that is so profound. And just giving these great leaders a chance to tell their story, talk about the challenges they faced, how they've overcome them, and then what some of the impact has been of taking a flourishing workplace approach. So we're so excited about that. And that's going to be rolling out actually in September. So September 2025. So very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that as well. So, hey, listen, that's a wrap on today's episode of Top Dog Tips. Ed, thanks for joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg, for the opportunity. And it's awesome to see the incredible reach and impact that you're making every day. And so keep up your great work.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, so audience, if you'd like to learn more, head to flourishingworkplace.com for free tools and resources. And be sure to check out the Flourishing Workplace video podcast series launching this fall on the Megabits Media Network. So if this episode resonated with you, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps leaders find real solutions. Until next time, lead with empathy, act with purpose, and stay authentic. This is the Top Dog signing off. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode of Top Dog Tips. You want more Top Dog tips? Head over to yyccalgarybusiness.ca and subscribe so you never miss another episode. So do you have someone in mind who should be on our show? Tap the Be a Guest link on our homepage to apply. And if you're looking to raise your profile in your Calgary business community, join the YYC Calgary Business Network by signing up for a free business listing, and also check out our shop club designed to drive even more visibility and sales to your business. So until next time, stay visible, stay positive, and keep leading the pack. This is the Top Dog, Greg Belanger, signing off.